Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode in our WCW What If series in TEW 2020. We are on the third week of February in 1997, and we are 13 days out from Superbrawl, where it is confirmed that the WCW World Heavyweight Championship will be on the line as the nWo's Bret Hart defends against the man who won the opportunity last week, Dustin Rhodes. We also have the big U.S. title matchup happening between Steve Austin and Paul Levesque. We have the tag team titles on the line in a triple threat tag team matchup. And so much more happening at Superbrawl. We also have that surprise last week where the mystery person, whoever the heck it was, showed up at the end of Nitro and kind of put a little bit of a spook into the New World Order. Not sure what happened there, but we're going to have to see how all that plays out. We dive into this week's show at the Rosemont Horizon in Chicago, Illinois, in front of 16,092 people, with a video that's opening up to start off the show. It's not technically the start of Nitro, but it's happening right at the beginning of the show. That shows Randy Savage arriving to the arena tonight, only to be jumped by the Four Horsemen. The group put quite the beating on Randy Savage before Pillman puts Savage's head through a car door's window. Security shows up trying to stop this as Savage is bleeding badly at this point. The rest of the Horsemen hold him off as Pillman opens the car door and puts Savage's head on the frame of the door before slamming the door shut on Savage's head. More security show up as Savage is motionless, and Pillman is laughing hysterically at what he just did. Let's get to 79. If you watched last week's episode, you kind of already know why this happened. I decided to be fair, to not cheese it, and to just, do the same thing I was doing for everybody. So Savage is actually off in rehab, and unfortunately, because, rehab, you can always end up with, you always have, a wide range of how long they're gone. Unfortunately, he's gone for the higher amount. He's actually gone for 8 months. So, we won't be seeing him again until closer to the end of the year. Fantastic stuff. We'll have to see how that plays out. But, Horseman writing him off TV, technically, at this point, by leaving him motionless and left laid out. Pillman getting to be kind of furthering his lunatic character by doing what he just did. So it'll be interesting to see how we're able to operate the rest of the year without Savage. But I've got some plans. I got some plans in motion. After that, though, we open up Nitro for True this time with an 81 rated segment. Where Nitro opens up with the New World Order in the ring. Hart says that last week was all going according to plan until that mystery person showed up. He doesn't know who it is, but if it's supposed to be a secret weapon being used by WCW to stop the nWo, it's a pathetic attempt at one. So whoever that is, Hart offers a piece of advice: steer clear of the New World Order. The group then talks about their respective matches at Superbrawl until Piper comes out. Roddy Piper says that Eric Bischoff got to waste everyone's time last week by having that number one contenders matchup that turned out to be the New World Order all being involved in it, which was basically just a cheap attempt at trying to beat down Dustin Rhodes and make sure that there was no number one contender for the world title, essentially. But Piper says that tonight there will be no time wasting, though, because tonight Bret Hart will defend the WCW World Heavyweight Championship ahead of Superbrawl. And his opponent, well, Piper will let everyone know in due time. Bischoff yells at Piper, who just smirks and leaves backstage. So, tonight, the main event, Bret Hart is defending the WCW World Heavyweight Championship against someone. We're not sure who, but someone. Yeah, crazy stuff. We're also supposed to have Eddy Guerrero versus Brian Pillman one-on-one tonight. And then it does get announced by the commentators here that tonight, Brad Armstrong will be getting his shot at the television championship, as it will be Brad Armstrong and Dean Malenko one-on-one for the TV title. I'm not sure why DiBiase performed poorly in the segment, by the way. I rated him on charisma. So I don't know why he performed poorly, but whatever. We have a quick little promo thing from Alex Wright and Kiwi Suzuki, kind of talking about the recent issues with Marcus Bagwell and Mariko Ishida. I forgot to actually include them in this, so it didn't further the storyline, unfortunately, but they're kind of talking about them because on WCW Saturday Night, they were jumped by Bagwell and Yoshida again, and they are issuing a challenge for Superbrawl to have a mixed tag team matchup on the show, but we'll have to see if it gets accepted by the Horsemen members or not. Then after that, TV title on the line, Dean Malenko defeats Brad Armstrong in 1409 by pinfall with a super gutbuster after Steven Regal provided a distraction. Dean Malenko makes defense number 7 of the World Television Championship. 80 rating for the matchup. Holy hell, this did great. 79 from Malenko, 64 from Brad Armstrong. Gained heat for the storyline. The idea was that Brad Armstrong basically had Malenko set up, was getting ready to kind of put an end to everything. He was up top, getting ready to connect with a big move. When Regal came out and just provided enough of a distraction, and Brad got caught up on everything, and then Regal ended up kind of holding on to Brad's leg when he was at the top rope, not able to get free. Referee tried to chase Regal off, and this is when Malenko was able to come to and kind of take advantage of the fact that Armstrong had been kind of not completely knocked out on the top rope, but he was definitely like stunned a little bit on the top rope after what happened, and he was able to come off that top rope with that super gutbuster to get the victory. So Brad Armstrong unable to get the job done against Dean Malenko thanks to Steven Regal's interference. Afterwards, Malenko celebrating until he sees the cause of the victory, Steven Regal. He didn't realize that Regal had been out there ringside, and kind of puts 2 and 2 together and realizes that Armstrong was only dazed on the top rope because of Regal. Malenko confronts Regal, which brings a smirk to Regal's face, till he clocks Malenko with a pair of brass knuckles. Malenko gets laid out on the mat as Regal picks up the WCW Television Championship and stares at it for a little bit before dropping it onto the chest of Malenko. Regal then leaves to a chorus of boos. 78 rating there. Yeah, Steven Regal able to get one up on the television champion. And it kind of sucks for Brad Armstrong because, I mean, he had a great back and forth match. Looked like he had a chance to win the championship, but Regal's interference cost him the title. So maybe this leads to him getting a title shot in the future again. After that showing, maybe he does get a fair one-on-one shot in the future. Who knows? But for now, Steven Regal standing tall above both of them, really. After that, Dustin Rhodes is backstage when his father, Dusty, approaches him and shakes his hand. Dusty says that he's proud of Dustin earning the title shot at Superbrawl, and that he knows that Dustin can get the job done and become the new WCW World Heavyweight Champion. He believes in Dustin, and he says that he knows that Bret Hart will have Ted DiBiase in his corner for that matchup, so he wants to even the odds. He wants to be in Dustin's corner for that match at Superbrawl. Dustin says he appreciates that and kind of accepts the offer, and to continue talking as the show goes back to the ring. So, Bret Hart will not have the man advantage by having Ted DiBiase in his corner at Superbrawl because Dustin will have his father Dusty out there. So, it could be an interesting little confrontation of sorts between Dusty Rhodes and Ted DiBiase at some point during that matchup. We're not sure, but it's going to be a good match for Superbrawl, that's for sure. After that, Steve Austin comes out and gets a microphone and kind of says that it clearly seems like Paul Levesque is ducking him every time that Steve Austin comes to try to get a piece of Paul Levesque. Levesque runs away, ducks away, tries to do what he can to get out of there. Last week he came out during that fatal 4-way matchup to try to get his hands on Levesque, and Levesque ran away from him. So he clearly showing that he's a coward, but Austin is going to get his hands on Levesque at the pay-per-view at Superbrawl, and Steve Austin will be the new WCW United States Champion when he whoops Paul Levesque's ass, essentially. 99 rating for that segment. Strong promo from Austin, getting the crowd all fired up for that title matchup in 13 days' time. Then, in a return to WCW, about the subpar wrestling non-existent crowd, Jesse James Armstrong defeats Kaz Hayashi in 842 by pinfall to shake, rattle, and roll. Jesse James Armstrong making his return back from his stint at rehab. I don't know if it actually didn't do anything penalty-wise for this, so. But, yeah, Jesse James Armstrong getting a victory here on Nitro. A 61 rating for the match. 58 performance from him, so he's, trying to get back into things. And, I mean, his brother just had a shot at the television title and couldn't get the job done, but still had a shot at it. But you gotta imagine it's gonna be interesting to see what happens when Jesse James kind of, I don't want to say confronts the Armstrongs, but kind of gets together with them again, because, it's a slightly different look for them nowadays. I mean, they're not really doing much that you guys can see. They're more on WCW Saturday Night, but they have added Medusa to the group. So now it's Brad and Scott and Steve, and Medusa has been joined with them. So it'll be interesting to see what Jesse James's opinion is about Medusa being kind of a part of the group, so to speak. But Jesse James gets a victory here on Nitro. After that, Roddy Piper approaches Diamond Dallas Page backstage and tells him that he is the person that Piper wants to challenge for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship tonight in the main event. So it is official. It will be Diamond Dallas Page challenging Bret Hart for the WCW World title here tonight. Page thanks Piper for the opportunity and says he plans to represent WCW well and get the title away from the scum that is the nWo. Piper says if Page does this for Piper, then Piper will owe him, which can be a very good thing to have in one's pocket here in the wrestling business. Piper walks away as Page begins warming up for the match. Camera then pans over a little bit and zooms in on someone who was listening in to what was just said. Percy Pringle, the manager of Vader, who Diamond Dallas Page has been having problems with recently. So, gotta imagine that's going to be interesting. But 86 rating for the segment, as it is announced that it will be Bret Hart versus Diamond Dallas Page for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship tonight, which will be huge. It'll be a really good matchup, honestly. Then we have Sting, who is in the ring, commenting. He's clearly sore about, being put through the table last week by the Giant. All the recent attacks. He's in the ring talking about the Giant. Well, all of a sudden, the Giant appears out of nowhere and begins to beat him down again. Sting tries to fight back, but the Giant surprise attack is too much for him, and the Giant chokeslams Sting in the middle of the ring. Giant then proceeds to leave. Big old grin on his face as once again he just took care of Sting. However, this time there's like this weird cawing sound heard, or kind of like a crow of some sort cawing. And the lights begin to flicker in the arena a little bit, and then all of a sudden the Giant turns around and he sees Sting standing on his feet. Sting is standing on his feet in the middle of the ring, staring a hole at the Giant. Giant is just absolutely surprised by the fact that Sting basically just no-sold getting the chokeslam there. So, very interesting to see how that just played out, as Sting apparently was able to fight off the pain from the last few weeks of attacks and the chokeslam that happened tonight. So we'll have to see what the hell that means. But the Giant may have bit off more than he could chew at this point. He may have done too many attacks, and Sting's firing back with that heart that we've seen from him for years now. Got penalized, or they got the lack of anything interesting happening because this segment is rated on overness. I need to edit that so I don't have that happen anymore. After that, Megumi Kudo is backstage when Medusa approaches her. Medusa says that she wanted to tell Kudo face to face instead of having Kudo find out by other means, that Medusa wants to receive her title matchup against Kudo at Superbrawl. Kudo says that she'd be honored to face Medusa again. Remember, obviously, these two fought at Starrcade to determine the first ever champion. And now, 2 months later, here they will be going at it at Superbrawl to fight for the WCW Women's World Championship again. Medusa watches Kudo walk off before getting a little bit of a smirk on her face about it. So maybe she has a little bit of a plan this time around or something. I'm not sure, but 52 rating, not too bad there, as it's announced that the title match will be happening at the pay-per-view. Then after that, in a continuation of the tag team storyline happening, Jerry Lynn of the New World Order gets a victory over Lance Storm in 8:15 by submission with a cross arm breaker. 75 rating for the matchup, 81 from Lynn, 53 from Storm. Lack of psychology on display. Yeah, I think Lynn's psychology is still not quite up there to where it should be, but I don't feel like editing it. 1997, Jerry Lynn was obviously pretty good at psychology stuff. Like, obviously he's not, a technical wizard or, a great storyteller like a Bret Hart or a Shawn Michaels or anything like that. But obviously, Jerry Lynn in the mid to late 90s obviously could have one hell of a performance in the ring. So you would think his psychology would be pretty decent, especially because obviously he's turned into a road agent nowadays. So clearly he knows how to work a match really well. Nevertheless, though, 75 rating for the matchup as Jerry Lynn gets the victory. 81 from Jerry Lynn. My God, the build of Jerry Lynn. I know I keep saying this week after week, but an 81 in-ring performance from a man who a year ago was doing like 40s, if that. This is a build like no other, in my opinion. Anyway, Jerry Lynn gets the victory here over Lance Storm. After the match, Waltman and Lynn put the boots to Storm until Jericho comes out to help his tag team partner. As both teams are fighting with each other, kind of getting distracted from anything else going on, Booker T comes from out of nowhere with a steel chair and starts laying out all four of them with a chair. Leaves them all laid out in stance call as the commentators talk about how it would seem like Harlem Heat would have the momentum, but with that attack last week on Stevie Ray, one has to wonder if Stevie Ray can even make it to Superbrawl. So 79 rating for that as Booker gets momentum for his team, but will he be having to go at it solo at Superbrawl? We'll have to see. Roddy Piper then approaches Eddy Guerrero backstage and tells him that due to the attack on Savage that happened before the show tonight, he suspended Pillman for a week, so Guerrero will not be getting the match against him this week on Nitro. Technically, he didn't really suspend him for a week, but he sent him home for Nitro is essentially what it was. However, he does offer Eddie an alternative. At Superbrawl, it will be Eddy Guerrero versus Brian Pillman one-on-one. Guerrero says that he was hoping to face Ric Flair at Superbrawl instead because he knows Superbrawl is one of the biggest shows of the year and it would be an honor to take on a legend like Ric Flair at that show and finally prove himself on that grand stage like that. Piper says that he understands. He gets it. He gets that he wants to take on, somebody as legendary as Flair at the bigger show instead of someone who's kind of up and coming like he is with Brian Pillman. So he's going to give Guerrero a choice. He says he will give Guerrero a match with Flair at Superbrawl if that's what he really wants. But if Piper will do, or if Eddy Guerrero will do this favor for Piper, because Piper wants Pillman to get punished for what happened earlier in the night as well. So he says if Guerrero faces Pillman instead, then he will not only have that match happen at Superbrawl, but he will have Brian Pillman's World War III guaranteed title shot on the line. He tells Guerrero to think about it and get back to him before walking off to leave Guerrero to think about this decision. So Eddy Guerrero has an interesting decision ahead of him. He wants a piece of Ric Flair at this point. He's been having to go through this gauntlet of the Horsemen the last couple months. He wants a piece of Ric Flair at this point. He wants to have that one-on-one match with Ric Flair. However, now the only other thing he really has seemed to show that he wants in WCW is the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. And if he faces Pillman at Superbrawl and beats Pillman, he would have that guaranteed title shot that could get him that opportunity to try to win the championship. So now he's got to decide whether he wants to take on Ric Flair and get his revenge on Flair, or if he wants to take on Pillman and get the opportunity for the title shot. We'll have to see what Eddy Guerrero decides. Then after that, in the main event, in an 86 rated matchup, hoping for a little bit better, but I'll take it. In an exceptional matchup, Bret Hart defeats Diamond Dallas Page in 15:37 by pinfall with a victory roll, thanks to Vader coming in and basically just pummeling, not pummeling, but basically kind of smashing DDP with one of his big old fists, causing DDP to get stunned and get rolled up by Bret Hart. Bret Hart makes defense number 2 of the WCW World's Heavyweight Championship. 86 rating for the match. 96 from Bret Hart, 79 from Diamond Dallas Page. Just kind of checking to see declining physical, lack of heat from the associated storyline. Okay, I guess that kind of works, but was hoping for a little bit higher than that, but that's all right. Anyway, great matchup, but Bret Hart was able to get the victory in 15:37 to retain the WCW World's Heavyweight Championship, thanks to Vader. Afterwards, Bret Hart is celebrating the victory until the mystery person shows up on the stage once again. Bret is looking at this person confused as to who it is, until all of a sudden he's taken down from behind by a diving bulldog. It's none other than Dustin Rhodes, who connects with that signature bulldog of his, laying out Bret Hart, who was exhausted from the matchup. And Dustin Rhodes picks up the WCW World Heavyweight Championship and lifts it up in the air to a big crowd response as that mystery person looks on to end Nitro. The show itself gets a 91. I'll take it. I will definitely take that for sure. Increased popularity in 37 regions. No complaints there at all. Another successful week for WCW. And now now the mystery person showed up 2 straight weeks. This time he actually provided, whoever this is, provided a distraction that led to Bret Hart getting laid out at the end of the show. So, it's going to be interesting to see. Of course, we'll also have to see if Eddy Guerrero decides to, challenge, or decides to face Brian Pillman, or if he faces Ric Flair. We'll have to see how everything else plays out. Nitro, once again, with the success. 6.5 million viewers for the show. 3.5 million from Raw, which got an 80. Raw had Michaels and Warrior defeat Yokozuna and Psycho Sid to a 95 rating. I feel like basically this match gets run every single week on Raw at this point. Like, they don't really change it up too much beyond this same tag team match over and over again. The Daytona 500 happened this week, by the way, and we beat it. I don't know why it happened on a Monday, because in real life it happens on a Sunday, but whatever. We beat it, so there's that. So there you go. Another successful week for Nitro, and we'll have to see where things play out for here. So next week will be the go-home show for Superbrawl. We're going to have to see how the nWo can prepare for their title matches at Superbrawl. We'll have to see who Guerrero chooses to face, and we'll have to see about the builds for everything else. But thank you all for watching. Definitely appreciate it. We will catch you all in a future video.